Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Dr. Roy, an assistant professor of AI and head of the Applied AI Lab at Ariel University, where he works on cutting edge machine learning while constantly asking what all this means for human beings, ethics, and faith. So we learn from him, we'll understand from him about language models if they can truly understand what science says about free will and what enduring lessons ancient wisdom holds for navigating a world of algorithms. Welcome to the show, Dr. Roy.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Dr. Roy. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about artificial intelligence, we'll talk about God, and we'll also talk about ancient wisdom and how we'll also talk about how all these things we can connect. We'll talk about so many things, but before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Okay, so basically, I got a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science. And right now, I'm the head of the Applied Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at Roi University in Israel. It's in Samaria. And when we say applied AI laboratory, we usually mean that we know that we don't focus on the next GPT version, or we ask like very serious philosophical questions regarding AI and free will. We just utilize the massive power of AI tools in different domains, because as it turns out, AI, if you use it correctly, and if you would like, we can elaborate on what correctly basically means. If you use it
Yes,
correctly, we can solve unsolvable problems. We can solve problems that up until now were unsolvable. And I can use this tool in different domains. So we have joint research with the Faculty of Education, with the Faculty of Medicine, with uh, autism, with many different domains, because AI is like uh, consulting a very intelligent man. And like everyone knows, in every domain, consulting a very intelligent man will benefit you. So basically, this is what we do. We consult a very intelligent men in different domains. Hence, we can solve problems that up until now were considered very hard or even unsolvable.
absolutely, Dr. Roy. So you talked about using correctly in the right way. But then, right way or correctly from whose perspective? Is it from the businesses who have created this? Is it for the common man? Is it for one country against another? Is it from, so many other different aspects? How do we define who is correct, what is wrong? Who will tell us that?
Okay, so I think you just touched upon this very hot potato. Basically, AI is a massive optimization machine. If you want to go from A to B, AI will do it in the most efficient way according to your metrics. You can do it in the shortest way, you can do it in the fastest way, like ways, you can do it in any metric that you want. So if you define your problem and you define your metrics, AI can do it the way you want. AI can achieve the best result according to your metric. Okay? Now, we have two things that we need to predefine. Number one is set the goal, and number two is to set the metrics. Okay? If you have both of them, you can use AI perfectly. And again, what you said, I think, touches on this point, because when you say right, you have two meanings for the word right: right versus wrong, or right versus evil, and right versus evil, or right versus wrong. Okay, like 2 plus 2 is 4. This is the right answer, and 5 is the wrong answer. And should I don't know, should I should I invade Israel and kill 1,200 people in one day? This is right versus wrong question. And since human beings, and we have seen it in the last Israel-Gaza war, and you can see it very, very easily in what happens between India and Pakistan. We, as human beings, we don't agree on the definition of right versus wrong. Some people think that what the Palestinian did on October 7 was very right, was justified, and something that it was like the most horror atrocities in the 21st century. So since human beings haven't decided yet what is right from wrong, and with AI cannot answer, AI cannot help in those kinds of problems.
Absolutely. Let me ask you or understand for the audience in this way, Dr. Roy,
Mm.
is that when large communities in a wider way want to use AI, still it is, some sort of, a majority which is forming, which wants to use it. But what about AI giving immense power to just a few individuals who can utilize it, utilize its strength, and almost put it at its command like a genie? I'm talking about that part. Who will tell those individuals in terms of, it's like a
Mm.
king commanding a big army without anyone advising him
Mm.
or her. And that point in time, I want to understand, how do you then define or understand about what about the right or wrong, or about humanity, or about God, or about soul, or even about science? Because it's never in our history it has happened this way, that technology will so-called empower individuals who have got the might as well as the power.
Let me even, uh, state it even more outrageous, that never in history, never in the course of history, technology was so cheap. We are talking
Right.
about $20 a month, and so accessible to everyone. So when you give the analogy of a king, it's not a king. Anyone with a credit card and a $20 per month can have access to this genie. Okay. And I think what you said again is so profoundly important. We usually speak about egalitarians, about equity in society. And in a way, AI, or the powers of AI, the genie, what you just said, I think is a very good analogy, can increase the equity or the equality between people in the community, and in the same time decreases the equity or the equality. And I think what I mean is that AI can increase the inequality, that you don't uh, 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 anymore distinguish people between those who have and those who haven't, the untouchables, like in the Indian caste. Okay, you can, if you have $20, you have access. So it has nothing to do with your family wealth or where you came from. Nothing. If you can, if you know English, or if you know how to use it, you can use it for $20 a month. But this is, how we can increase the equity. But how do we decrease the equity? Because now the new strands, or the new distinction is between those who are smart enough to use AI and those who aren't smart or lazy or afraid. So, in time, as time progresses, we will see that those two communities became very far away. Okay, we will have the smart people who knows how to use it, who know how to, ask it, what stocks should I buy? And we will see the people who can't use it, who are afraid, who are not smart enough, who are not flexible enough. And those people will no longer have something valuable to offer to the workplace. Okay. And again, there is nothing you can do about it because technology or science is indifferent to values. Science can tell you how to do things, but not should you do those things. Okay. And this is like the biggest revolution or the biggest uh, 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 achievement of the scientific revolution, that science stopped asking why or should I do it.
Absolutely, Dr. Roy. So, should we understand when we talk about $20 per month analogy, then should we understand that it is AI is building a much more egalitarian society everywhere, connecting the world everywhere? Or should we also look at it? There are people who cannot afford $20, are on the free plan, and then there are people who are also going for the $200 per month, and then there are people who have got the direct access, fully plugged in, no money required, because they are the creators of such such programs which will create destinies of millions of people. How would you want uh, to look AI's understanding from that point of view for our society's equitable, egalitarian status, or I don't know what haves or what have nots?
So again, I'm not subscribing to your distinction or the way you propose it. The difference between the free version or the paid version are very big, but they're not big enough compared to the difference between people who are willing to use it and people who are afraid or not smart enough or not flexible enough to use it. So I think that the distinction line goes with if you with intelligence, with flexibility, with the idea of should I or how can I adopt to this new world. And I think this is by far much more important than the free version versus a $20 version. By the way, there is now a $4 version without the coding ability, and uh, we will see that, like in the Matthew effect from the New Testament, those who have everything will be given to them, and those who have not, everything will be taken away. The smart people will be smarter, and the not smart or the not so sophisticated people will be even less smart or more stupid, just because AI changes everything. So it's not about the $20 versus the people who don't have the $20. It's the people who are smart enough and courageous enough to use it or to learn how to use it, and people who are afraid.
Absolutely, Dr. Roy. So let's understand it. Smart people and not so smart people. Smart people who are using it, will those people who will be much more grounded, will they be not so smart people who believe in God, people in doing choosing the right thing, and choosing not to use things because just because they are available, people who have a soul? How would you want us to understand that in the context of what you are discovering, what you are doing, and in the wider way, how will God be looking at this smart versus non smart in the grand design that He has created for the universe?
Okay, so you asked many questions, and the main deep answer to all of your questions is I really don't know. I really don't know. But since this is a philosophical podcast, I can postulate. Okay. So, one thing, and it's very important to me because I lean more to the conservative side, I don't tell people, oh, my way or my wish about how should people use AI has nothing to do with reality. People don't listen to me, and people don't do things recording or according to what I wish. Okay, and I think in the latest World Economic Forum in Davos, where Demis Hassabis recently said that China is just 6 months behind the US in developing AI, is a very frightening statement because we know that China don't have or doesn't have all the moral restrictions that we put on ourselves in the West. So we can say whatever we want, but China is moving forward in an accelerating pace, and we don't know what China will do with those capacities, with those abilities, and with no moral restriction whatsoever. And this is, I think, very frightening because when we look at the balance of power between states, it is profoundly different than the balance of power between people. Okay?
Right.
What you can do or what you should do between your friend or your neighbor, turning the other cheek, you cannot do it between states. Okay? So the moral obligations that you have as an individual are irrelevant when you're talking with the state perspective. And if China, if the bad guys are doing AI with no moral restrictions, this is something that you need to take into account. Okay? China is not attacking the US right now because the US is stronger. But if China was sure that it is stronger, the balance of power was immensely different. So this is number one. And again, I think that it goes back to what I said before. The scientific revolution says that science has no word whatsoever about values. Science cannot tell you how to behave. Okay? All science tell you is if you want to behave like this, I can give you the most efficient way to do it. Okay? And I think that what we need to do is to come back or to think, okay, what does it mean to be human? And the title of our conversation right now is does AI change what it means to be human? And I think that this is a very powerful idea. Most AI discussions usually focused on will AI take our job or something like this. But I think it is different because AI doesn't only take our jobs, it takes our meaning of being human. Let me give you like this thought, okay? In order to preserve a moral behavior, it is unimportant if you are a religious person or a materialist person. You need some sense of uniqueness, okay? Why you don't behave like the animals? Because the human beings are different than all other animals. Now, you can subscribe to the Darwinian evolution theory, but still deep inside you know that you and the biggest apes, you are not the same. You are on the right side of the fence in the zoo, and they're on the wrong side. Okay, so you can say yes, we are basically a sophisticated chimpanzee, but it's not. You know deep down inside that you are different, that you are special, that you are unique. And this uniqueness, this feeling of uniqueness is what preserve this moral sentiment that you have. And for centuries, human beings thought that their uniqueness come from their intelligence. But right now, we have a machine that is willing to help, willing to do whatever we want. I think that the genie analogy again is so spot on, and it is it is much smarter than us. So, what does it mean to be human? What is so unique about us? Let me give you another example. Uh, the self. We all consider ourselves to be like the core of who we are. The DNA of Roi is my inner thoughts. And again, this is profoundly different from what the ancients thought. But the the idea that I think, the word that comes to mind when I internally speaking to myself are the DNA signature of my entity, of my personality. But with LLM, I can duplicate my writing style. LLM can articulate my thoughts in a way much better than I ever could have done. What does it mean? It means that much of what I consider to be my unique personality, my unique divine personality, if you want, is just a very complex pattern recognition. Otherwise, I couldn't, in a million years, duplicate my writing style, or LLM couldn't duplicate my writing style. So, we thought that we are special because we are smart. No, GPT 5.2 is much smarter than any of us. We thought that we are special because the way we articulate or the way we are thinking. And no, GPT, even though it's just a text model, it has no external knowledge of reality. It has no embodiment, etc. AI can articulate my thought better than me. AI can duplicate my writing style. Hence, what I considered to be the DNA signature of my uniqueness as a human being is just another form of very complex pattern recognition that can be duplicated. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yes, yes. I heard you, I listened you, and I understood you. I want to understand it a bit better for the audience from this particular angle. Then, with all this AI and everything happening, how do you see, are these the best of times for humanity, human beings, or being human? Or are these the most challenging times for humanity, being human, or human beings?
I think it was Charles Dickens in Between Two Cities that it said it was the best of all times, it was the worst of all times. Okay, it is basically goes together. The best of all times and the worst of all times goes together side by side, and this is the story of humanity. Okay, this yeah when the challenge, the catastrophe is basically an opportunity to change. From a Jewish perspective, the Holocaust was the worst atrocities ever happened to the Jewish people. Ever. 6 million people, about third of all Jews all over the world were terminated in the most villain ways. But out of this pure darkness and evil, 3 years later, the new modern state of Israel was born. And the new modern state of Israel could not have born without the atrocities of the Holocaust. So I think that basically the best of all times and the worst of all times are linked together.
Absolutely. Then, in these times, what should guide us? Should the future guide us, or should our ancient wisdom guide us. And that brings me to, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Maimonides. Help us understand
Yes.
from that perspective. And for everyone else, they can look at their own ancient wisdom. And you talked of China. China has also a lot of ancient wisdom. Will that not work there?
We are not talking about the ancient wisdom of China because we are talking about this communist party. And it is very sad that China is not led by, to some extent, by its tradition and heritage. And what we see in China is like the communist. I think that if China would have utilized or learn more from its tradition, it would be much better. The idea is that we can learn from the ancient. We can learn from the ancient. Okay? The ancient made huge mistakes regarding the understanding of our world, but they had very good intuitions that now we lack. For example, and I think again, this is like the third time that we are referring to that. The scientific revolution canceled completely the purpose in science. Okay? Science, you can say in ancient philosophy, why the woman, why do the women have breasts? And the answer would be in order to feed the purpose, okay, of the breast is to feed the newborn. Okay? In modern science, we don't ask why. There is no purpose. Okay? And this is a very unique distinction and very important distinction between modern science and ancient science. Uh, uh, Aristotle viewed the world in a purpose way. So everything had a purpose. Modern science, from Francis Bacon forward, we we omitted this question, and now we had two things, one good and one bad. The good thing that when we freed science from the purpose, from the telos, okay, when we freed science from the telos, science made a huge leap forward. But nowadays, science cannot tell us nothing about how should we live our life. Okay? So we cannot go to science to seek for answers. Where do we seek answers? Where do we seek our sense of uniqueness? Ilya Sutskever basically said, like, I think a few months ago, that since our brain is just a machine, it is inevitable that sooner or later we will duplicate it. Okay? It could be, GPT 5.6, it could be GPT 40. Okay? If the human brain is just a very complex combination of neural network, then we can duplicate it. Not now, in 2 years from now, 3 years, 5 years from now. Elon Musk said that he thinks that in 3 years, all AI will move to space. Okay. So if the human brain, or if being human is just a very complex interaction of neural network, then we can duplicate it. Unless there is something more. Just a second. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a problem with live broadcasting. Unless there is something more. And I think that we need to go deeper to what does it mean to be human. And again, according to Maimonides, the most important thing regarding being human is to think about God, is your intellect. Now, the intellect is a very tricky thing because ChatGPT can think better than you. However, human beings still want to think and do things from themselves. I think that one very good example is playing chess. Everyone knows that computers or I don't know, chess programs can play chess better than all persons, all people combined. It doesn't matter for all the people who are playing chess. They play for the fun. They play to fulfill something deep inside. You know,
Right.
we are watching the Olympic sports event, and we are thrilled to see Usain Bolt 100 meters in less than 9.5 seconds. Any any motorcycle can do it. Yes, it doesn't
Right.
matter. It doesn't matter for us because we want to celebrate the human being achievement. Okay, so we need maybe to steer away from the productivity. Okay, AI can program better, AI can give us better results, but still we want to celebrate human achievement. And this is very tricky because again, if what's the meaning? What is the meaning of celebrating human achievement if when next time you need to move package from A to B, you will not call Usain Bolt because it's inefficient. You will take a motorcycle and then move. So let's say that we do want to celebrate human achievement. Okay, very good, but it's inefficient. So for all business purpose, for all scientific purpose, we don't need human achievement. And I think it again goes back to how can we find purpose? Because human beings are very much telos oriented, purpose oriented. There is a story that a young woman approached the rabbi and she said, I want to commit suicide. Everything is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. I want to just kill myself to stop this. And the rabbi told her, if you are actually right and everything is meaningless, just continue. What does it mean?
Mhm.
Why does it matter? Because if everything is meaningless, you can continue in this meaningless life. But what but she resisted because I cannot continue with meaningless life. Hence, not everything is meaningless. We cannot live in a meaningless world. Now, we can go, to the other world, you can go to the afterworld, you can go, to, I don't know, but we cannot live in a meaningless world. I think, the best example is Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins has a life purpose, very passion, very passionate life purpose of going around the world and telling people that life has no meaning.
Mhm.
Now, this is very funny. The entire meaning, Richard Dawkins is nothing but passionate meaning and a passionate will going and tell and educate people that life has no meaning. And no one speak about it.
Absolutely. No one speaks about it, Dr. Roy. So I want to understand for the audiences that do you think the only differentiator between humans and machines going further or into the future will be about meaning, about feelings? Maybe tomorrow AI can get to that sentience stage. They can have some feelings. But what about meaning? Will that be the only differentiator in the times to come?
I okay, so let's start with meaning. I think that no, let's start with feelings. I think that AI can duplicate feelings in a very efficient way. Again, when my wife is mad at me and she feels something, I really don't understand my wife. As a married man for almost 20 years, I really don't understand my wife. Okay, and the fact that I don't understand doesn't mean that I cannot communicate with her in a way that pleases her. So, and this is important. Even in feeling related jobs, like being a psychologist, being a nurse, being a teacher, okay? We are not getting paid to feel. We are getting paid to recognize feeling and to act accordingly. Okay? Let
Right.
me let me let me repeat it because I think it's important. We are not getting paid to feel in feeling related jobs, like a shrink, like a nurse, like a teacher. We are getting paid to recognize feelings in our students, in our patients, etc., and to act accordingly. This is what we call empathy. You don't have to feel yourself. And I think that, modern research regarding ChatGPT prove that ChatGPT can be much more uh, uh, much better at feeling than most human beings. Okay, because it knows how to articulate the words in a way most people cannot do. Okay, this is one thing. And again, right now, ChatGPT can do most feeling related jobs better than us. Number one. Okay, the second part, which again is important, is the idea of meaning. Because again, you can ask ChatGPT to pretend to have meaning, and it can do it better than most human beings. So the answer is okay. So many people say, okay, the intent, I want to do it. Okay, ChatGPT can do the task better than any human being, but human beings have the intent, the why. Up until now, I think this is the best answer that differentiate human beings from modern AI. But again, if the human brain is basically a very complex set of neural networks, what happens when ChatGPT will be even more complex than the human brain? Can we see different features emerge from this complexity? And many people think yes. Just like, according to many researchers, consciousness is like the emergent of a very complex system like the human brain. Maybe free will, maybe consciousness, maybe the unconsciousness, like we have seen papers of the Claude Opus
Right.
unconsciousness. Okay, we don't know, but one thing I do know is that we must take this into account. We have to have a very strong sense of what separates us, what makes us human. Okay, what makes us human, and just I want to point that up until now we just discussed the text only AI, the ChatGPT, the Claude. There is another field of physical AI, robotics AI, very, Android AI, a robot that is very similar to human being. And
Right.
this is for another discussion.
Absolutely. So, for someone, Dr. Roy, who is so attached to, who understands AI and also understands humans and are also concerned about, technology, about ethics and everything else, and faith and everything. What concerns you most about today's AI or even the future AI? And what is it that makes you very positive about artificial intelligence?
Okay, I think that the most concern I have regarding AI is that people use it instead of thinking by themselves. I think we have seen MIT papers that when people use AI, when people use ChatGPT, they have like they have their brain basically on airplane mode. Okay, they shut their brain because thinking is a demanding mental process. People steer away from demanding mental processes. And when AI can give you this process for free, people usually prefer using AI instead of thinking for themselves. This is basically, when people are doing like deep research right now, and ah, when people
No
are doing
problem.
deep
I
research, right?
understand.
No, no,
Even I
no,
face
no.
the same problem. Don't worry. Don't
I
worry. Even
I
I
need to
am having
sneeze. I
COVID.
need to sneeze.
I
Anyway,
know. I know.
when people are
We are
doing deep
humans. We
research,
are humans. We are not AI.
oh yes, but the what basically when you said when you say we are human, you usually mean all the faults, all the things that makes us not perfect. And I think you are absolutely correct. But from efficiency perspective, being human is a bad thing, okay? Because we are human, and then my sneeze uh, just uh, interfere with the conversation. And I think you touched on this point. Being human basically means all the not so perfect thing. It's like the good, the Robin Williams speech in the Good Will Hunting movie. That all the quirks and faults between couples is what made their life much more interesting. This is life, this little faults. Now, I think, okay, so the one thing that make me concerned is people tend to stop thinking when using AI. And when ChatGPT is asked to write like a summary, and then you ask people that used ChatGPT to write the summary about the summary, they usually have no clue whatsoever. So basically, most people use AI not correctly. They just give AI the task and they don't invest any or almost any mental effort. And this is a very bad situation. We just, like in ways that we forgot our inherent tendency to navigate, and to look at the sky, to have like a feeling, like an intuition of where are we? We lost it with ways, and now I think we even lose it with AI. This is one thing. The other thing that makes me a little bit more optimistic is that the current economic model of AI is unstable. OpenAI is losing money every day. And in
Right.
the next year, I think, even 2026, we will see that people will not be able to use AI in such a way. Okay? So you will need, just like in every decent economics, you know, to say, okay, is this question important enough to use it for AI? Because AI will be more expensive. Okay? So I think that when people will need to pay more for AI, they will need to readjust. Okay? They will need to readjust and they will value more what AI can give them. Okay? And I think this will happen in the next year or two.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Roy. One last question I want to understand for the audience is that where will God, where will soul be in all this? Will they still be there in our conversations? Will they be out of the conversations? Will AI, you talked about, that it can replicate our brains also. If it can,
Mhm.
then people also talk about that, our human growth of humanity or evolution of humanity will lead to growing us beyond our biological existence. And that is where, so will AI perhaps also give us the power to go into the deep universe and search for God in the real life and form, maybe search our search the place where our soul finally goes. Help us understand from that perspective. Will that, which way do you think it will all go?
Okay, so let me give you a Jewish answer and I think an Indian answer because in the West, we usually attribute the concept of meditation to Indian wisdom, basically. And I think that meditation or concentration or the concept of praying is basically about going into myself. Concentration is, going into my own center. Concentration. And this is basically happens with meditation. And when you understand the deep Jewish concept of praying, this is basically the same. In order to find God, you don't need to look in the Higgs particle. You need to go into yourself. Okay? You need to go into yourself. You need to go inside. And then when you find yourself, the true self, you find God. The problem is that social media and the new world and the new modern world, I think, did very good job in blocking this opportunity. People are terrified of finding themselves. They don't want to be alone. They have social media all the time. They are connected, and if they are alone, they read a book. The mere phenomenon on just thinking, sitting with no books, no social media whatsoever, and think is something rarely seen in Western tradition, in current Western tradition. And I think what we will need to do is to go back to this. And we have our Indian friends and our Indian tradition that can help us, getting to know ourselves better. And we have the Jewish perspective, and we need we need to practice in getting to know ourselves better. I think this is like the most important lesson that I can give. And again, we have those lessons from the Indian tradition, and we have those lessons from the Jewish tradition. And I think that in some way we need to combine.
Absolutely. So, in a nutshell, what is it that you would want to tell the world about what you are doing? What is it that anything that has that is also missed out in my or reflected did not get reflected in my questions, and you want to share?
This is a big one. I think what I really want to tell is that you don't have the privilege of not knowing those tools, both from the methodological perspective or how to use them effectively, and from the philosophical perspective. Because AI basically is not about AI. AI challenges the old question of who we are. What is special about human being? We are very similar to apes, very similar to chimpanzee. 99 of our DNA is just the same. But when human beings, when people dream, they don't dream on chimpanzees. They dream of
That is
angels and they dream of gods. Okay?
right.
So, in a way, we are part of the animal kingdom, but in a very slightly different and profoundly different way, we are something completely else. And the materialistic worldview that emerges in the 19th century try to decrease it and to say, no, we are just part of the animal kingdom and there is no room for the soul or the divine. if you want to have or uh, to preserve sense of uniqueness, which I think is mandatory to any moral behavior, you need to go back to the divine. What does it mean? Find within your own culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. Find it within your own culture. There is so much to learn about all this, about AI, about God, about ancient wisdom, and about so many things that are happening. What's the best way? A lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about you, the things that you are doing. What's the best way for them to do so?
Go to my YouTube channel. We have an Hebrew version and an English version. Go to my YouTube channel and see my conversations with the smartest people alive today regarding AI, philosophy, religion, etc.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.